Hello everyone, this is Ryan FS here, and today we are going to talk about the FMC of the Pt1 777. Now, I just want to give a few disclosures here. First off, I'm not a real pilot. The second thing, this video is going to be filmed out of order, so apologies if I do stuff and it's not exactly in order, right? I'm going to try to edit it in, but no, there's going to be jump cuts, right? And then the other final thing I want to mention in this little intro here is I'm doing this. What I'm about to say for this 777-200 applies to virtually every 777, whether it be the 200LR or the freighter or the 300 or the 200. What I'm about to say applies to all of them. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get in. Alright, so we are in the 777. Before we do anything, I just want to go ahead and give everyone a bit of an overview of what is where, and yeah. So first things first, this here is your EFB, right? Every time you go ahead and get your flight plan, you just press this little button, request data from SimBrief, and that is in the electronic flight bag. Okay, these here are your two main screens. This here is your yoke. This here is your FMC. This here is a little screen, right, that we're going to use for CPLC, and more on that later. This here is your insurance screen, right? This here is your MCP. Okay. In another part of the video, actually in a different part of the series, we are going to go ahead and dedicate it, and probably an entire 10 minutes of talking about this whole setup here. Right. This here is your EFIS. Right. This here is this here controls this. Right. So let's say we wanted to see our fuel. Right. Hit fuel. There we go. Right. Of course, we have our throttle quadrant here. We have our transponder. And our radio panel is right here. Okay, that's the quick little overview of where everything is. So like I said, today we are going to primarily focus on these two screens here. Primarily this one though. Right, primarily this little box from about here to here. This here is known as your FMC. Alright, we're going to be spending a lot of time in this today. Okay. Now, you might notice this thing, by default, will come on. If you want to change that, which I do recommend, personally, I prefer cold and dark. Right, all you have to do is go into PNTG setup, startup state, right, just click on this, right, and then search for cold and dark ground power unit is what I prefer, right, if you want to really go through the hassle of having to request a ground power unit every single time here. You can, but, I mean, I prefer just to have it automatically attached. Okay, but anyway, let's talk about our initial setup first. Now, before you do anything, just verify you have updated nav data, right? I'll explain later on at the very end of the video and how to update the nav data if you need to. For everyone's information, it comes out. Updated nav data comes out every fourth Thursday. Okay, anyway, we're going to go ahead and get into the FMC here, right? And that right there, you can see when your nav data is from and when it expires. Okay. Anyway, posit and init, we're going to just go ahead and copy our GPS position into our into our position here, right? It's going to take the ADIRUs some time to align, right? That's a different part. That's a different step for another day. Okay. You can align it you can set it not based on the GPS position, but instead like the airport and gate. Though I do find that at other airports. At some airports, it can be a bit shady. Alright, anyway, route. We need to go ahead and request it. Right, notice we have not requested it from SimBrief yet. Today's flight is going to be a mini flight from Edinburgh to Heathrow. Okay, now you can see it. Right, we're just going to go ahead and hit the little CDU button right there. Now, some people prefer to load via GSX. In this aircraft, I do not recommend doing that. That is because the GSX integration is not ideal, right? So I just generally like to instant load it, right? So set payload, set fuel, select route. Just go ahead and give it a second. You might notice that the aircraft freezes up ever so slightly. That is a known bug for the Pt1 aircrafts. Okay, they are working on it. Anyway, now we see it load. If you give it a second. Right, we are going to load the route. Right, the best way you can see if it's actually loaded is if you go into legs. Right, sometimes it takes a minute. Right, we hit back to route. Okay. Is it in there yet? Not yet. And there you go. There's the freeze. There's the freeze up. Now you can see it's in. Now, in order to activate this route, you notice how it's blue. What we have to do here is hit activate. Continuing on with initial setup, the next thing we need to do is get our performance data. So come here to performance init. Right. Now, the 0 fuel weight, it'll automatically calculate for you, and that'll go ahead and update your gross weight. Okay. By the way, this here, right, this here is known as your scratch pad, right, whatever you type. So let's say you type in Heathrow for some reason, it'll type in right here. That's what's known as your scratch pad. Anyway, you can accept the performance data, and that is essential for VNAV. Different topic for a little later. Okay, now we do need, in order for VNAV and progress to be anything decent and be accurate, we need to go ahead and get our wind data. So in order to do that, all I have to do is hit FMC com wind and load. Right, and give it a second, and once it's loaded, you can go ahead and hit execute. And that concludes the initial setup. Now, obviously, we concluded our initial setup, right? In terms of loading up the wind data, right? Loading up the VNAV system, right? Now, we'll talk about VNAV in a little bit, but we need a departure runway. And now I'm going to take a look at our METAR here. We're at Eddy. The wind is 070 degrees, 11 knots. That means it is definitely a 06 day. So all I have to do is hit departure arrival, right? Sometimes it'll take you to this page. It should automatically take you to the departure page. All I have to do is hit departure, right? And then we're going to take runway 06, and we are going to be on the Gossam 1 Delta departure, right? Now we can go ahead and execute that. Now let's say we're a little close to Heathrow, right? This is a short flight, right? Let's go ahead and put in our arrival for Heathrow. Let's say we can, of course, come back over here, find out what the winds are. 090 degrees, 12 knots. That means it will most likely be 09 left on VATSIM, right? And that'll be, of course, on the Nugra 2 hotel, right? Same thing, and we'll, of course, take that from Buffington. Okay, very, very simple. This part here is probably the most simplest part of the whole FMC. Anyway, we can go ahead and hit execute now, and now that has applied both those changes into our route. So if we were to look at legs, right now we can see we have the Nugra 2 hotel arrival in for Heathrow, with the, of course, transition at Buffington. Now let's say we wanted to go direct waypoint, right? So let's say we wanted to go direct to, let's say we wanted to go direct to Combo for some reason. All I have to do is hit that, right? Bring it up to the top on the first page, which you do have next page and previous page buttons right there, and then hit execute. Now I'm not going to do that just for the sake of the tutorial. But if we wanted to, we could just hit execute. Alright, so just expanding on the VNAV system, right? So let's say something in here is not correct, right? So first off, we have our altitudes over here and our speeds right here. So let's say at Combo, the the SID calls for, let's say it's a 240 knots instead of 250 knots, and let's say it's flight level 60 or above, right? How do we do that? Well, I'll show you how to do it with just the speed first. It's going to be 250, and then you put a slash, and you copy whatever's in here, right? So that's flight level 60, but make sure you have to do it in altitude. So what is flight level 60? It is 6,000. Okay. That should be 240, but anyway, you get the point, right? Boom, execute that. Right. Now let's say we wanted let's say we wanted to change this to flight level 60 or above, right? All we have to do is put in the slash flight level, or sorry, about the altitude, and then we have to put an A at the end. So 6,000 A, right? If we went below, you'd put a B. Boom. Right. Now it will go ahead and remove the speed restriction, and it will go ahead and put it in based on what we have in here in VNav, right? Think of the two systems working together, right? But let's say for some reason you had to be going at 240 knots there. Here's what it looks like with this, right? So 240 slash and then flight level, or sorry, once again the altitude. Let's say 60B. I mucked that up massively right there. There we go. Not that that really makes sense, but I mean, just for the demonstration. Anyway, hope that helps. Alright, let's go ahead and take a second to talk about takeoff data. So if we were to hit init ref, right, root performance, and then takeoff, that'll take us straight to the thrust limitation page. Right, so right here, what I have, sorry, wrong button. Right here, what I have is some takeoff data, right, calculated for me by SimBrief. Okay, first things first, we want to put in our thrust setting, right? So it's recommending takeoff 2. So we have to put in that. Now we're going to put in our assumed temp or selected temp, right? So it's recommending 5.1. So just go and type that in. Boom, right? Now, we're going to go ahead and go into our next page. So, take off. I'm going to just go ahead and remove that for y'all. Okay. Now, before we really... You'll notice that some of this information will automatically calculate if the adheres are aligned. Sorry, I forgot to film this part when I filmed the rest of it. Right. Sorry, it's not going to calculate for you. We're just going to have to put it manually. But what the second these are automatically land, then it'll automatically calculate for you, or you can just put it in manually. I prefer putting it in manually, but anyway. Next page, we want to put in our winds. So for Edinburgh, the winds are 070 degrees, 1 knots. Just go ahead and put in 070 degrees at 11 in the wind, right? Put in the current outside air temperature, that is 06. Okay. There we go. Now go ahead and previous page. SimBrief is the way I have it right now is flaps 15. Whenever I get performance data, I tend to make sure that there's a fair amount of margin, right? So we may have 1,608 feet of margin. That is preferable, right? Anyway, flaps 15. Boom, and then this part here, right, will automatically calculate for us. Sorry. Bad timing for that to happen. Or if it's not going to do it for some reason, I think it's because they don't have the performance data in. Or 0 fuel weight. There we go. That'll do it. Take off. Boom. There we go. It'll go ahead and give you your trim setting. Right now, we can just go ahead and put it in. If you want to put in your takeoff weight, you can. Though I usually leave it blank. Don't know if that's standard procedure or not. You can put it in. There's nothing against you putting in. That's, yeah. Actually, let's go ahead and put it in. Let's say for some reason, let's say it's going to be 175 tons for taking off, right? 175 or no. It would be closer to 178, right? Let's say it's going to be 178.0. We can just go ahead and chuck that number in there. Boom. Now our V1 speed is going to be 121, 124. And 132, and this is how you put in your V speeds. That's right, 132. But anyway, y'all get the idea, right? And if you ever want to get back to this page, right, all you have to do is root takeoff. There we go. And if you want to get back to the page with the thrust limitation, right, just go ahead and hit init ref, right, index. Thrust limit. It's right there. Hope that helps. Now I just want to go ahead and add something here. I wasn't intending to add this, but I found it useful earlier when we were going oceanic, right? Let's say we want to see our ETA for combo, right? Now progress will only give us the ETA to our next waypoint, right? But not to fear, there is a way to see it, right? All you have to do is legs, root data, and it'll tell your ETA, right? So we're estimating combo, assuming we were to depart right now, which we're not, but it would estimate at 16:45 Zulu with an estimated 17.5 tons of fuel. Moving up here to these set of screens, to the MFD here. Now let's say we wanted to scroll ahead, right? See what the route's going to look like as we arrive, right? So all I have to do up here is come here to the EFIS and go to plan. Now, how do we actually begin? How do we actually get there? To be centered over, let's say, a waypoint we wanted, right? Let's say we wanted to center over Bovingdon. All I have to do is use the FMC, right? So legs, right? Scroll down to the waypoint we want, right? So we want Bovingdon. Oh, great. We can't see Bovingdon because SOP is at the top of the page. Not to worry. All I have to do is press this little step button here. Boom. Now we're centered over Bovingdon. Alright, let's go ahead and take a second to talk about holds. Alright, so in order to put in a hold in the 777, all we have to, there's a dedicated button for that. That is hold. Right, let's say we wanted to hold at Bovingdon for Heathrow, which is not uncommon, happens basically every aircraft. Right, we can go ahead and put it in, right, so that was hold. Right, here, let me go ahead and clear all that out. Let me show you all one more time. Hit hold, right. Type in the waypoint we want to hold at. So we want to hold at Bovingdon, Bravo, November. Choose the location, right? So the frequency for the Bovingdon I want is going to be 113.75, right? That can be found on the charts, of course. All right. Let's say I wanted to hold at Bovingdon, right? Now put it where you want it. Boom. Now, this is very important here. We want to double check this data. So if we were to look at the charts, which I'm not going to show because I'm lazy, right? So the inbound course for Bovingdon is not 116 degrees. It is 115 degrees. And it is going to be right-hand turns. So to get that to correct, right? So all you have to do is put in right or Romeo. There we go. Now it will tell you your best hold speed, and it'll tell you when you get there how long you can hold for, right? I tend to arrive in Heathrow with quite a significant amount of fuel on board, so this number might be a little high depending on how your fuel is set up. Okay. And then, of course, you can, let's say we wanted 1 minute, or let's say we wanted, let's say 10-mile legs for some reason, right? We can, of course, change that like that, right? Anyway, let's hit execute in order to add it. Legs, right? Let's say we're still in the plan phase, right? I want to go ahead and take a look at this. Boom. And you can see here in our plan here, now we have a lovely hold. Now, let's say we wanted to exit this hold for some reason. Right, or let's say we were told to exit this hold. All we have to do is take this waypoint here, put it in there, and just like that, that hold is now gone. Right, once again, looking here. Okay, that range is not ideal. Boom. Now that hold is gone. On the topic of holds, let's say, well, first off, Heathrow is landing 09 left, right? So let's go ahead and take a look here. Let's say we wanted to extend this localizer really, really far, or almost extend it really, really far, right? Well, in that case, we'd probably want what's known as a fix, right? So all I have to do to add a fix is fix right there. Okay, put in whatever waypoint we want from that fix, right? So let's say we want Heathrow, right? So all we have to put in is Echo Golf Lima, right? Let's say we wanted a 10-mile radius around the circle, or let's say we wanted a 10-mile radius circle around the airport, right? All we have to do is put in a slash and then 10, right? What that will do is that'll create a 20-mile diameter, 10-mile radius circle around the entire airport. Now let's say we want a line, right, for the 09 left localizer. Well, now we have to get a bit of math going, right? So first off, runway numbers are always going to be rounded, right? So let's say, right, so what is the opposite of 09, 0 degrees, right? It's roughly 270 degrees, right? So what we can do is put in 270, right? Boom. Now we have that miniature extended localizer, right? The reason that you have to use the reciprocal, right, because it'll go in the direction that it wants, that you put in, right? So if you say that you want, let's say we were to change this to 090 degrees, right? Boom, it's going to extend in that direction. It's a heading from that reference, right? So obviously, if we wanted like an extended localizer for 09 left, right, what we'd have to do is we went the reciprocal, right, because we're going backwards, right? So once again, that's about 270 degrees. I know that Heathrow's numbers are ever so slightly off, but just for demonstration purposes, right? And that's how you do fixes. And it's important to note that for fixes, you can do up to 4 references, right? So let's say we wanted to do something from Bovington, right? Yeah. Okay. Because we already have it in our route, it will automatically grab it for us. Let's say we wanted a, no, I don't know. Let's say we wanted a 30-mile radius. Or let's go with something a bit more reasonable. Let's say we wanted a 10-mile radius from Bovington for some reason. Boom. Now we have 2 circles, and you can do this up to 4 times. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a second to talk about CPDLC, which this aircraft does have, and it has a pretty damn good integration with it, if I do say so myself. Right, all you have to do is come over here and hit COM. Alright, now one of the nicest things I like to do when I'm cruising, right, maybe when I'm getting ready for descent, or maybe even when I'm on the ground waiting for departure, right, or getting everything set up, right, what I like to do is go ahead and get our ATIS. So all you have to do is go into flight information, ATIS request, right. Right now we're at Edinburgh, so Echo Golf Papa Hotel. Okay, put it in. Now it gives you a bunch of ATIS sources you can get it from. Right, as we want it from PMG, right? PMG will automatically create an ATIS for you. It won't include any runways, but it'll include the weather in case you don't want to read the METAR, which I understand if you don't. Right, or you could also go FAO or VATSIM, right? Anything that uses the hobby log on, right? Let's say we want to go PMG right now. Now, you'll see this little box here. This auto means every time it automatically updates, it will go ahead and send you a copy, right? It'll go ahead and send you the updated ATIS, right? We can do auto, right? And then let's say we wanted to terminate that. So let's say we had already gotten our ATIS, right? Which will be in new messages, by the way. I'll go ahead and get one in a moment. I'll just show you. But anyway, let's say we had landed, right, and we wanted to stop getting the ATIS. All you have to do is auto, put this all back in auto, and then terminate, and we will stop getting that ATIS. Anyway, let's say we wanted to go ahead and get that ATIS. All you have to do is hit send. Now it'll take a second. Now it's a good moment to go ahead and talk about other integrations, right? So let's say we wanted our departure clearance, right? Go ATC clearance request. Sorry, wrong thing. ATC. Sorry, it might be in. Sorry, is it in flight information? Departure clearance request. Boom, and it'll automatically pre-fill a lot of stuff, especially if you have it in here, right? Now, notice it'll say we need a few things, right? So let's say right now we're at Eddie, we are stand 1-5, or I think we're 1-5 anyway, right? Now, how do we get that in here? There's obviously no keyboard. You're just going to type in the scratch pad and then click in here. So let's say we are standing 1-5. I don't know if we are right now, but let's say we are. Boom. Right. It's that simple. Right, and then of course you can hit send once you put it in your facility, which you can find usually usually in the details, either on the ATIS or on the controller, right? And then of course put in whatever ATIS you have, right? Anyway, new messages. You can see here we have Edinburgh information echo at time 16:20 Zulu, and I'll let you all read that later. Okay. Now in order to clear this off, you can just hit cancel. And boom, and now it is out of our system. Right. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about second flight plans here. So in order to access your second flight plan, you can go ahead and go into route. Okay, route 2. There we go. Now, let's say we wanted to do a modified version of what we have, right? So we can well, first off, it's important to note that this will basically do whatever it is you want, right? It'll do the same thing as root 1. Okay, so root, let's say we wanted to do that, right? For right now, I'm just going to select the root, right? Because it's not common that you'd go ahead and set the aircraft on the ground with root 2. In fact, I want to say it will happen never, right? That's mainly like, let's say we wanted to divert due to some reason, right? We can, of course, go ahead and get our flight plan and do all of our stuff in here, right? Now, once we're loaded in this, you will notice if we were to hit legs, right, it'll do whatever you have in for your root 2 legs, right? And when we go ahead and go to root, right, boom. Now, let's say in the middle of putting this all in, right, let's say we get told, oh, we want to go to a direct waypoint, right? All we have to do in order to get back to root 1 legs is hit this little arrow, boom. Now we're back in root 1, right, and same thing right there. Right. Real quickly, for those curious on how to update the nav data, right, you used to be able to do the 777 through the EFP. Though recently, I've been finding that it's a little not reliable. So anyway, just go ahead and install the Navgraph Hub, and you can go ahead and just do it through there. Remember, every 4th Thursday is when they release new nav data. And on screen right now is when they did the most recent one, for those curious. So I do hope you found this little tutorial interesting, right? This is a very, very basic tutorial of the FMC and some of its functions. There was a button that we didn't press, and that is if you excuse him for being slow for a moment, and that is the alternate button, right? The truth is that realistically, you're not really going to need the alternate button that often, especially if you're the average person on VATSIM, right? Usually, if I need to divert, right, you can do it through the alternate button. Usually I'll just throw it in the second flight plan. Though I will leave a link in the description for those who want to know more about the alternate button. Right, and yeah, I don't know enough knowledge about it in order to go ahead and do a whole tutorial on it. But anyway. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you found this video informational, and I will see you all in the next one. So long.